Henry Bradshaw Fearon. 1833, he wrote a book called Thoughts on Materialism, and he starts with a historical sketch of immaterialism. He argues that the idea of immateriality originated among pagans, and he describes some of that history. And then he explains that a chief doctrine of Jesus and his apostles was a future life to be obtained only by means of a resurrection of the body. This is a theme, by the way, that recurs throughout Christian materialist authors, that the resurrection of the body as the sole means of a future life is evidence that Jesus and his early followers were materialists, because if they thought that the body was just the house of the soul, as it were, then the death of the body would not be the end of existence. The soul would continue. But the fact that the early followers of Jesus and Jesus himself taught that the only means of having a future life is through bodily resurrection is evidence that they were materialists, at least in regard to human nature. So, after describing this, he then says about the doctrine of the resurrection, it is a doctrine which secures the object of future existence without being encumbered with the palpable absurdities and philosophical puzzles of immaterialism. It comports with the most enlightened reason and the deepest philosophical and physiological research. He also says in this book, I deem immaterialism under every form as alike unsupported by reason and opposed to revelation. The words of Jesus, so far from proving, tend to disprove immaterialism. Okay, so here's someone who's a believer in revelation. This is someone who follows Jesus, believes that his teachings are true. He believes that God reveals messages to humanity, and yet he is a materialist. He's not trying to reconcile materialism and kind of like find a compromise between materialism and Christianity. He believes that materialism is actually the teaching of Jesus and the early Christian church.